Happiness. It is such a motivating emotion. It's how our childhood fairy tales end. It guides us when we look for love. And it is the only emotion explicitly written into the Declaration of Independence. For some, happiness is about personal success, building wealth, climbing the corporate ladder, driving the fancy sports car. But for some of us, happiness that is about contributing to others, sharing our time, talent, treasures, finding meaning and purpose in our pursuits. It is that kind of happiness, when it is sown into the soils of our neighborhoods, our movements, our generations, can grow far beyond what we see in our own lifetime. And choosing to find that kind of happiness, despite some pretty hard life conditions, is how I got to be here today. I want you to imagine a young man so desperate for a better life that he risks everything, stowing away on a ship bound from Puerto Rico to New York. He would later marry, have a son, join the military, and ultimately sacrifice his life for this country in World War II. His name, Julius Vilar, my grandfather. His son would meet the love of his life on a blind date in New York City. They would marry, raise a family, and ultimately pursue the kind of happiness his father was seeking. Not this fleeting kind of happiness that we chase today, but that foundational happiness that comes from stability. Being born a mixed-race person in America, I am constantly being asked, "What are you?" A very telling question. Because what they're actually asking is, so I get you were born here, but you're not from here. So I just say that my father's side is Afro-Latino of Puerto Rican heritage, and my mother's side is Pacific Islander of Filipino heritage, and that makes me a Flipperican. Or a Puertorriqueño, depending on who's asking. Not being from here can mean that some of our ancestors were purchased, brought, colonized, forced, or even fled into this country. And it will become their children and their children's children that get to experience the promise of life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. But growing up, my grandfather's struggles for survival, my parents' fight for stability were lost on me. My biggest concerns, getting that leather jacket for Christmas, fixing the TV so I can play Super Mario Brothers, arguing with my brother that it was my turn to sit in the front seat of the car. I was 10 years old, sipping on chocolate quick, watching the latest episode of Knight Rider, when at 8 p.m., my exhausted father walks into the door, turns off the TV, looks him in the eyes, and with a solemn voice say, "I want you to stay in school and take advantage of whatever opportunities come your way, because I don't want you to be like me." It was that moment that made me realize, oh, I get to experience this little moment of happiness sipping on a sweet chocolate drink and watch a talking car solve mysteries because my dad was making sacrifices. He was doing what he must so I can have a better life. In one eye, I saw that hurt 11-year-old boy that was forced out of school to find work. But in the other eye, I saw how happy he was to come home to a loving family. And I won the family lottery. Growing up, happiness can be found in sharing a plate of lumpia these Filipino egg rolls that only my lola can make. Finally nailing the line dance to September that my titas were teaching me. And experiencing the kindness of my dad as he drove around family members to their games, rehearsals, doctor's appointments without a single complaint. I had the privilege to experience this kind of happiness and explore my purpose because others before me made it possible. You see, beyond the simple pleasures of a family enjoying their time together, generations before us struggled and sacrificed so that future generations can walk a different path. At the age my grandfather was being sworn in to the military, I was being sworn in as president of my high school student body. At the age my dad was interviewing for jobs as a chauffeur, I got to interview for jobs at law firms. Tapping into that motivating emotion of happiness can transform the struggles of survival into the fight for stability, to the power to explore your purpose. When my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer, he was given 3 months to live. My graduation from college, 13 months away. His reason to live was to witness his youngest son be the first Vilar to graduate from college. When it was my turn to walk across that stage, I wrote my name to be read as Jay, thanks for everything, Mom and Dad Vilar. My graduation represented the reattachment of the broken link between school or work, education or economic survival. That shared generational accomplishment meant that my grandfather's struggles meant something. My grandfather's own experience with happiness, compounded by the seeds of struggle and stability, sprouted into new freedoms. Freedoms for me to fail, to find myself, and to explore my purpose. But who can really say that if the political or economic circumstances would not have been different, that Julius Vilar, my grandfather, would not have lived a happy, healthy, prosperous life in his homeland? But it was their generation that was forced into survival, and their children fought for stability, and our generation have the privilege to explore our purpose. Generational happiness has compounding effects. Each of us carry a different burden, and each of us add a new layer to our family story. We often imagine that the pursuit of happiness is an individual journey, that it's a destination or somehow can be bought. But what if we reimagined it? What if we saw happiness as something to be cultivated, not for ourselves, but for those who came after us? What if we measured our success, not by how much we accumulate, but by the happiness we contribute to our communities and to our future generations? And happiness, it can be found in all of us. You just have to know where to look. Even in these dark times, you can find the light of happiness. When a scared teenager is hiding in the hull of a ship, sailing to unfamiliar lands, you can find happiness. It's in the hope and the belief that somehow there is better than here. That choosing to find that kind of happiness is worth the risk. When we choose happiness, we are reminded why we're making the hard choices, fighting for justice, and doing the work for a better life, even when the feeling of happy isn't necessarily the emotion of the moment. What choosing happiness does, it gives us our power back. And when we share our happiness, we are reminded that we are not alone. And when we remember that we are not alone, we find ways to connect, to organize, and to build the kinds of shared futures that creates the happiness we are all envisioning. So, what does choosing happiness look like? It's being kind to one another. It's building relationships and genuine connections. It's contributing to the betterment of someone else's life. And what does that look like? It's giving a ride to someone's doctor's appointment, letting them know that whatever medical news they receive, they're not alone. It's turning to the person next to you, looking them in the eyes and saying, "You are awesome." Go ahead, turn to the person next to you, look them in the eyes and say, "You are awesome." It's inviting someone over to your home and cooking them a meal your grandmother made you. It's letting your brother have the front seat of the car even when you knew it was your turn. So what am I? I'm a happily married man. I'm a proud second-generation Flipperican. And I am choosing happiness by leaving my people, my places, and my communities better than I found them. And you are my community. And I invite you in choosing the kind of happiness that comes from contribution and sharing so that future generations can explore their purpose far beyond what we see in our own lifetime. And that makes me happy.